Thank you for joining us this evening. This is the IIBA Tampa Bay chapter. Today is July 16th, 2026, and today we do have the pleasure of the masterclass provided by George Bridges. Today he's going to talk about business data analytics and AI, from insight to intelligent decision making, and he's going to bring us the idea that data is everywhere, but insight alone does not guarantee results. He's going to teach us how business analysts can move beyond analysis to influence, which is what we want. We want to influence real business decisions using our data analytics and AI. So I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you.
Before we begin, let me introduce myself. My name is Thea Soren. I'm the president of this chapter. I've been doing business analysis for about 20 years and I've done a few things, but what it means to be the president is I'm here to help you. If you need assistance, if you need direction, if you have questions, if you need something looked at, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's the place that I'm most active, and I am here. I mentor people every single week. Those of you who are new to the IIBA, many of us work as business analysts every day, but not everyone even knows that there's a global organization dedicated to advancing our profession. That organization is called the International Institute of Business Analysis, or IIBA. It is the global standard-setting body for business analysts, supporting a community of over 30,000 professionals across 120 chapters worldwide. The certifications many of you may already recognize or are working toward are grounded in the Babcock Guide, an internationally adopted framework that defines best practices for our work, and there are additional 4 certifications in specialty areas. What are the benefits of joining the IIBA? You get access to training provided by chapters around the world. You get complimentary access to over 25,000 outstanding books, including the Babcock, along with webinars and additional resources, and you get discounts on certification exams. IIBA chapters are in major cities around the world. If there is not an active chapter near you, we can talk about you starting a chapter, or you're welcome to the Tampa Bay IIBA. Members of the Tampa Bay, Florida chapter are not restricted to residents of Florida. In fact, we have participants literally all around the globe. If you do not have an IIBA chapter, Tampa Bay can be your chapter. Our vision here at Tampa Bay IIBA is building a thriving community of empowered business analysts. So why would you choose to join the Tampa Bay IIBA? We offer multiple training sessions each week, including CBAT prep, coaching, and acclaimed SDLC workshop, among other things. You can view our upcoming events here at our website, and updates are posted across LinkedIn and Facebook. And at the end of 2025, we had presented well over 300 events here during our BA master classes and to organizations around the world. And those events are available on our YouTube channel. But that's a lot. 300 is a lot. So to get an index of all those recordings, you can go to Bob's Amazing Index at rpchurchill.com, and he has it organized by date, by topic, by speaker. It's quite impressive. Thank you. As a result of putting on all those trainings and mentoring over 100 individuals in just this last year, the Tampa Bay chapter was awarded the Global IIBA Award for Professional Development Excellence. And this is our esteemed board. I'm so very proud of the efforts of each one. We currently have 2 CBAP training classes underway, and we're at the very end. The students are working on all 6 knowledge areas right now. It's the hardest part. As a result of all the efforts we put in since 2021, these students have reached out to tell us that our training and mentoring was a big part of their success in achieving their certification. Many on this list are past participants of our CBAP study group. Several studied along with us using only our YouTube videos. Of these 32, a good number have gone on to lead either IIBA chapters or move up in their organizations here and around the world, because we make leaders here. The Tampa IIBA is also very privileged to be the first IIBA chapter to sponsor a book that benefits the global BA audience. Business Analysis, Bridging the Gap Across Industries, Volume 2, 12 More Industries, now has joined Volume 1 on Amazon. I want to take a moment to appreciate all of our partners. Our number one partner group, though, is you, the participants who attend these meetings and who watch us on YouTube. We're also partnered with over a dozen other IIBA chapters worldwide and mentoring 4 chapters that are just forming. We partnered with the Doback Group based in the UK and then other groups in the Tampa Bay area. And we're also successfully partnered with several recruiting services and training companies. Our goal in these partnerships is always to elevate you, our IIBA community. We're partnered with Purdue University, the Virtual AI Master's Program, and we've provided speakers for them. We've provided mentorship for their students. It's a pretty exciting program. As a result of all of those partnerships, you have some benefits. These are discounts for and special events for our participants. Watermark Learning offers you 40% off using this code Tampa21. You get 40% off of their courses, and we can also help you with some other things. Watermark is what I use for our training. And incidentally, guys, today they came out with a new UI for their training. I'm pretty excited about it. But if you want access to this training, you can get it at 40% off using this code. Adaptive US, who specializes only in business analysis, has over 90 free items on their website, and they offer our participants a 20% discount on all their live courses and on-demand courses, excluding those few that have IIBA exam vouchers. This is the code you use to get their discount. So let me tell you what's coming up next. Grab your calendars. This Saturday, Durand Park, we have a in-person event. Cliff is leading it. Thank you, Cliff. This is the Durand Park that's in Tampa, Florida. Bring your comfortable clothing, closed-toed shoes, and bring your gloves. We'll provide trash bags and pokey sticks, and maybe vests if you're really fashionable. And you can even bring your littlest ones. We can sign off on Bright Future hours if you need volunteer hours, and any other volunteer hours that you might need. And typically, after the pickup, and it's typically not very, very dirty at all, the guys will say, hey, let's go here for lunch, and y'all can go and get to know each other a little bit more. Next Thursday, Shane McDougall is coming to bring us Frugal Founders, Launch and Validate Without Going Broke. If you know anyone who's tried to found an organization, you're going to discover that most of them have failed. Unfortunately, the failure rate is really high. Shane's going to talk to us about how you can validate ideas using simple, practical techniques that reduce risk and wasted effort. The week after that, Shanna Fillmore is going to bring us Beyond Writing Requirements, the real value of business analysis. I've been watching Shanna on LinkedIn for about 2 years, and she is consistently putting out excellent BA content. I'm really looking forward to this presentation. At noon on August 6th, we have a privilege of having Russell Mears, who's one of the global board of directors for the IIBA. He's going to explore how organizations use measurement systems, KPIs, and reporting structures to create the appearance of control, even if it's not reality. And then we have something very special that we're starting. This is our SDLC simulation for 2026. We've got 2 pre-meetings that are required watching for anyone who's going to be in the workshop. The simulation number 1 is going to be August 6th, and we're going to talk to you about what is a project manager, product owner, and business analyst, and what the deliverables are, what their goals are, and things like that. A week later, 2 weeks later, we're going to go to simulation number 2, the pre-meeting. And for this one, we're going to talk to you about UI UX, testers, and developers. Incidentally, we are looking for mentors for these roles. We're also looking for people who want to play the role in one of the 6 teams. In the week in between, on August 13th, we've got a recruiter panel coming. These 5 people from all over North America are going to come and talk to you about how to be more marketable. What skills do they see needing that we need to have in the future? What mistakes do they see BAs making? I'm really looking forward to this, and we've got several other chapters that are helping us spread the word about this. So all of these trainings are on our Tampa Bay website, tampabay.iiba.org. We put them on our LinkedIn group. We save them to YouTube, and you can get the YouTube link as well as links to everything else at rpchurchill.com. Now I'm going to turn it over to George, and you can give your presentation, George.
All right. Thank you very much. You make me want to move to Tampa.
Well, you should move to Tampa, but you can be anywhere. We've got members from all over the world.
Okay. Well, let me get set up here so you can see my screen here, and I'm going to share my presentation. I just need to get it active for you and for the group. Thank you guys for having me. I am I'm really impressed by. Can you see my screen? Is it not showing yet? Let me just. I don't think it's showing yet. Let me
I don't
share.
see it yet.
Yeah, let me share. Okay, I think we should share. Okay, it should share now.
Yeah, we can see it now. Thank you.
Okay, okay. And let me just bring up another. Okay. So, good evening, Tampa IIBA. Thank you for the opportunity to join you tonight. We're going to explore a question that sits at the center of modern business analysis. How do we move from having more data to making better decisions? That's a question that all of us ask. You know, a model recommendation is not automatically a business decision. I think you all know that. A useful decision also requires context, accountability, and a clear definition of value. So, I know I can't get a show of hands, but how many of you are already using AI somewhere in your analysis work? So maybe you can just raise your hand, and someone looking at the screen can let me know what
Let's
the
see.
response is.
5, 6, 9, 10,
9.
11, 12.
Not
So
everyone, huh? But more
about
than
over
half.
half of us.
Okay. So let us begin with a problem many organizations recognize. More data does not always produce a stronger decision. Right? So organizations invest heavily in collecting data, as we have been over the years with technology changing, building dashboards and generating reports. Yet the value can still disappear between the insight and the action. Would you agree to that? Data must be available, the insight must be understood, someone must own the decision, and the outcomes must be measured. So, where does your organization most often lose value? Data availability, interpretation, decision ownership, or follow through? So, if you could put that in the chat, we can hear the response back. Where does your organization most often lose value? Availability of the data, interpretation of the data, someone owning the data, or follow through? What kind of responses are we getting?
Interpreted, availability, interpretation and ownership,
Right.
interpretation,
Okay.
availability, follow through, measurement.
Okay. Kind of just about touching everything there. I didn't hear decision ownership is in there as well.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let me just say this. The analyst protects the entire chain. So the chain that you see here, the analyst should protect the entire chain. Our responsibility does not end when the report is delivered. A lot of times we participate in gathering requirements to generate or develop the reports, and then we turn it over to our users for them to, do what the report intends to do. But often we may find that there may be failure in the follow through. So protect that chain. We will work through 4 practical questions. How do we protect this chain that you see here? So we move from data availability all the way through the actual measurement of the decision that's being made from the data that we've presented or developed. All right. So our route is organized around 4 questions. These are 4 questions that you might want to ask. First, what decisions are we actually enabling? Okay. Second, what evidence is good enough to support that decision? Third, where can AI add meaningful leverage? Finally, how do we keep people accountable for the consequences? Okay. These questions deliberately begin with the business decision rather than the technology. And from what I'm seeing is that a lot of people are, maybe not a lot of people, but some people are relying more on the technology. They're using the tools, but they're not really focusing on the efficacy of the technology being able to deliver better decisions. That's not everyone, but I think that's a problem or a trap that we might all fall into. So the starting point reflects the natural partnership between the business analysis and the business data analytics. So this is something from a BA perspective and a business data analytics perspective. So there's a gap between the two. The BA and the business data analysts are not generally the same. Would you agree to that? Are there people who are working in the business data analytics area? And I like to get some responses on that versus the pure business analysis arena. There's a tie-in because if you look at the IIBA and you look at what they did with the CBDAs, Certified Business Data Analyst, you'll see that there is a tie-in between the business analyst and the business data analytics uh, analyst, but they're not the same. Any comments on that? So there should be a partnership between the two, though, the business analyst and the business data analyst.
Right. We have to explain to people why they're different, that they are different. People will go into data analytics or business analytics and they think they're doing business analysis. And it's
Right.
like, well, no, we have different goals. We want to get to the same place, but we're partners. You do one thing and I do the other side of it.
Yeah, and looking at that as a business analyst, you go out and you come up with the problem statement and you come up with the requirements, and then it doesn't have to really be centered around data, but the business data analyst is more focused on the data aspect of the solution or looking at data primarily. So it's not just in the business analysis world, it's not about just the data. It's more about coming up with a solution that may not be data centric, but it could be broad enough that it covers a lot of different areas. So I think that's important to note. Um, but it's also important to know also that as a business analyst, more and more from what I've seen so far, more and more business analysts are called on to be able to work in the space of the business data analyst and working in business data analytics. And I think every BA should have some knowledge of what they can do in the business data area. But it requires some training. It requires some understanding of what the elements are and what the nuances are for working in business data analysis. Okay, so business analysis, as we know, helps the organization define the right problem. I think we can all agree to that. Understand the stakeholder needs, clarify the constraints, and describe the value. If you look at the business data analysts, they investigate the evidence, they test the hypothesis, they quantify the uncertainty, and they influence the decision. Now, when you do business data analysis, you start with, first of all, trying to define the problem or the question that you're trying to answer. Um, in practice, sometimes we find ourselves going right into the data and utilizing the data and looking for answers in the data when first we should really be looking at what is the question that we're trying to solve? What is the question? What's the hypothesis that we're trying to come up with an answer for? And so we start with that. We start with the problem. We start with the question, and then we start to look at the data. So that's a key to doing data analysis and data analytics. So in my consulting and teaching work, I've found that many failures are not purely technical. Okay, the analysis may be correct, but the business question was unclear, or the stakeholders never agreed on what success meant. I was teaching a class last week, and one of the key points that we made in teaching that class this was more about project management, and that is to be able to do a what we call a scope filter, which is to say what's in scope and what's out of scope. And that's really having a contract or an agreement with the business owners or decision makers to make sure that we're delivering what it is they're expecting. We're all on the same page. So knowing what the stakeholders agree to, making sure we have clarity in that is not only important in business analysis, but it's also important in business data analytics and pretty much in project management as well. So the business analyst can serve as a decision translator between the business leaders, also the data professionals, and the technical team. And it's kind of interesting because that statement there, we serve as a liaison. The business analyst has always served as a liaison between the technical team and the business community. So there's no different than what I'm saying here, and that is the business analyst now is becoming the translator or the liaison between the business users and the technical team, which would be working on the data. Okay. So would you agree with that? Would anybody disagree with that?
I agree.
Okay. All right. Once the problem is framed, once we know that analytics is going to help us climb from hindsight towards action, then we can move forward. Let's see how we can move forward. Okay. So what we have is we have different levels, different types of analysis that we do in data. There's the descriptive analytics, which tells us what happened. There's a diagnostic analytics, which helps us explain why it happened. There's a predictive analytics, which estimates what may happen next. And then there's prescriptive analytics, which considers what actions should be taken. For example, a retailer might describe the last month's sales, diagnose a regional decline, predict demands for next month, and prescribe an inventory adjustment. Those are the examples of what I just described as the different types: descriptive analytics, diagnostics, predictive, and prescriptive. Each step then carries a greater consequence. Now, AI may increase the speed and scale, but it does not remove the need to define the decision or examine the uncertainty. Okay? So we don't just blindly use AI and blindly use the results from AI. It's a big help. It can help us to do a lot of things quicker, faster, and allow us to get results. But it still takes the human element to be able to look at the results and be able to determine whether those results are useful and valuable, and if those results are realistic for what it is we're trying to do. Okay. So a repeatable framework keeps these forms of analysis connected to the business value. And we all want to know, and we all want to be able to provide value. That's what we're in. That's why we are in business as a business analyst, as a project manager, as a data analyst. We are in business to be able to provide value to our organization. Okay. So the 6 domains in the BDA frameworks, if you've looked at the IIBA BDA frameworks, begins by identifying the research question, as I mentioned earlier. Once we know what the research question is, then we look for the source of the data. We have to find the data, right? And we go look for that. We look for the data that's going to provide us with accuracy, the data that's going to be reliable, the data that's available to us. Once we have that data, we've done some manipulation of that data, then we need to analyze it, right? After the interpretation of the data or analysis of the data, we interpret and we provide reports to the organization or the decision makers. But going beyond that, though, just providing the report and the interpretation doesn't necessarily mean that you can influence that decision maker, right? And guide that strategy. And I think that's where we should probably all spend more time at. What is the data showing us? What is the data providing to, or what can the data provide to the decision makers to start making better decisions, and then help to guide that strategy. So the process is often iterative rather than perfectly linear, as you might see here. Okay. If you look at each one of these, what we call gates, and these are quality gates, before we leave each one of the domains, we can ask the question: is the value hypothesis clear? Is the data usable and permitted? Okay, is the analysis valid? Can the audience understand the findings? Is there a named decision owner? How will the customer be measured? Right? We can't improve something if we can't measure it. So we always have to have a way to measure what it is we're trying to put into effect in the organization. Okay. So how will the outcome be measured? We want to define that before we actually get into a lot of the um, development of the solutions from an analytic standpoint. Okay, let's see, what do we have here? Okay, so quality gates then are going to reduce the rework and prevent good analysis from ending in a PowerPoint graveyard. How many PowerPoint presentations have you seen that ends up in a PowerPoint graveyard? They were good presentations, but nothing really happened as a result of that presentation. So let's practice first and perhaps most important domain, framing the question. How do we go about framing the question? That's the most important domain that we can actually look at, framing that question. And oftentimes we don't do that. We don't spend enough time on that. So. All right, so as you can see here, you see that if you had this to write as a decision-centered hypothesis, right? Well, how would you take a few minutes and maybe write down as a decision maker, write down the answers to this, fill in the blank. As a decision maker, I need to know, and then evidence or prediction so that I can, and I'll give you an example. As a retention manager, I need to know which customers are likely to leave during the next 30 days so that I can prioritize outreach and reduce preventative churn without using protected personal attributes. So how would you write that statement? And if someone can put that in the chat as an example, we'll take a couple of them and we'll read them out. Okay. You're probably familiar with this with this template.
It kind of looks like a user story, doesn't it?
It definitely is a user story. It is a user story. Okay. Has anyone come up with so we're talking about churn, maybe. How would you frame this if you were the decision maker or decision person? What would be your requirements? Any examples yet?
I have one example from Leah. Leah, do you want to say it yourself or do you want me to read it?
Oh, descriptions about the customer permanent, but I can do a different one. It's like as a sales manager, I need to know how often the customer doesn't to flow through that. I communicate customers to them. Help them.
Yeah,
It's kind of the flow better.
yeah. Can you repeat that? It was kind of garbled on my end. I
Let
couldn't
me
hear.
let me read it. We're having challenges understanding you, Leah. As a PO, I need to know how often an error is occurring so I can decide how to prioritize the fix.
Okay. Okay. All right. So what we could do, thank you. That's a user story, but what we can do from a data analysis, thank you for reading that, for coming up with that. We need to maybe clarify the time horizon and the action around that statement and how we're going to measure that, and then if there are any constraints. So the user story by itself has to be amplified, or it has to be you have to add more detail in order to be able to move forward with something that's going to help you with the decision. Okay, so oftentimes then we have to rewrite the request as a decision centered hypothesis, and that's what this is showing us here as an example. Okay, there's many more examples we could use. So let me just give you an imaginary company called Megacorp. Megacorp is in the business of providing auto parts, and they're doing it, and they want to move from being a manual system to a more automated system, right? A lot of the salespeople will take their orders via phone, via paper. And so the organization is looking now to be able to automate a lot of that. So Megacorp Automart initiative begins with the business pressure, the pressure to be able to, they have pressure because they need to relieve the order I'm sorry, their retail orders are falling They have paper-driven processes which create delays. They have dissatisfactions that exceeds 10%, and too much capital is tied up in the inventory and work in progress. So the response then for that would be a strategic proposal which would combine online sales, automated production using either print bots, and automated warehousing using store bots. Okay. So before approving this technology, what evidence would you want to see? What evidence would you want to see before approving this particular strategy? Anything that you would like to see? So again, the scenario is this company, they're failing, retail orders are falling, paper-driven processes create delays, the satisfaction exceeds 10%, too much capital, and it's because they are using some outdated processes and outdated procedures. So our proposal is to have an online sales, automated production using print bots, and automated warehousing using store bots. So before approving this technology, what evidence would you want to see? Anyone?
I'd want to see the warehouse flow, make sure that all of the blocker points have been identified, or all of the massive, failure points where it has to recycle back to an earlier condition, because those are
Okay.
going to be persistent regardless.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Anyone else? Thank you.
I'd like to see the time for operations between the different states, so we can
Okay.
see what is causing problems, and that as we automate it, we've got to understand it anyway, but I want to see the time. I want to see the quantities.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
The cause of dissatisfaction.
Cause of dissatisfaction. Maybe some type of survey. Getting a survey, finding out why there's dissatisfaction. So you wouldn't blindly go out and create this, approve this technology without having some evidence. Um, would you also want to be able to have some evidence as to the proposed solution and how well that proposed solution can address these issues that have been raised, or the issues that we're living with as an organization in Automart?
I'd like to get a definition on what dissatisfaction means too,
Okay.
because it can mean so many different things to so many different people. And how are we measuring it once we get the definition?
Yes. Yes. Right. Too much capital is tied up in the inventory, right? How much of that capital is tied up in the inventory? Is
How much
there
is too
some type,
much?
how much is too much? Yeah. Yeah. How much is tied up in the work in progress? And is there a trend over time? Has it increased, and what has that trend been over time? So there's some analysis that we can do prior to maybe even making the decision. I call that exploratory analysis. So there's exploratory data analysis, which precedes the data analytics, which provides the solution to what you're trying to do. So anyone taking on any type of assignment with data involved should explore that data and get as much information as they can out of that data, but they should do it in a way that they're always looking at what is the hypothesis, what is the question that we're trying to answer, and does the data that we have available to us, is that going to be able to address that and answer the question? So we have to be able to test that hypothesis out. So Audemars measure of success allows us to test whether the ambition is realistic or not. Okay, so their measures of success allows us to test whether the ambition is realistic or not. So we need to determine from them, how are they going to measure success, right? And in those different categories, whether it is in uh, uh, customer loyalty, increase increase in sales, decrease in inventory, decrease the cost of work in progress. Right? So they have to tell us that. They have to be able to give us that, or the decision makers will have to let us know what the answers to those questions are. So Automarts identify specific targets, and these are some of the targets. They want 15% growth annually in annual revenue growth. They want finished stock held for no more than 12 hours. They want 98% excellent customer ratings, and they want staff turnover below 10%. So these measures then begin to convert vision into analytics requirements. So listen to how that's stated now. They've now come up with, and what we would call in business analysis is they've come up with, these are the business goals, right? These are the business objectives. We start with the business objectives first, and then we go to the stakeholder objectives. Then we go to, the progression there as far as requirements are concerned. But I would look at these as being the business requirements, and this is a business requirement from a data perspective. 15% annual revenue, right? 12 hours, no more than 12 hours in finished stock. 98% excellent customer ratings. Okay, so so the question now for us now is, what is the current baseline? If they're asking for this, then we need to know, and we need to understand what the current baseline is. What's the measurement period? Okay, how often are we going to measure? Who's going to be the owner of the data, or who is the owner of the data? And are these targets compatible? Okay. And last question could be, could faster throughput reduce quality or increase staff pressure? Those are questions that we would want to have answered. Okay. A target without a baseline or owner or measurement method is closer to a wish than a requirement. Okay. Even a clear measure can mislead us if the underlying evidence is weak. So before trusting an analysis, test the evidence in 4 ways. Is it relevant to the decision? Is it reliable and reproducible? Is it representative of the affected population or process? And will it arrive in time to support action? Okay. Some additional things we could check is we could check to see whether could we consider if are there missing values? Is there leakage in the data? Do we have consent when we need it? Do we have access? Are there changing definitions as your chapter president mentioned? What's the definition of customer satisfaction and data collection under different operating conditions? We need to understand what the operating conditions are. Okay? So a sophisticated model cannot repair a poorly defined outcome or unrepresentative data. Okay. So with acceptable evidence base, we can decide where AI adds useful leverage to what it is we're trying to do. So AI can support several parts of the work. It may generate initial hypotheses, which I hope that you all are doing, and you should be doing it. If you're not doing anything else, that's one of the first things you should do. That's one of the most important things I think that all of us can do, is to look for and ask for initial hypothesis. Now it's up to us to choose the hypothesis that's going to work for our scenario, but it's up to us to be able to do that. Right. And that requires that you have some form of domain knowledge, right? And understanding the domain for which you're working in. I find a lot of people using AI, but one of the statements that I made, I think it was last week, and that is, you still have to know the fundamentals in order to use AI. I think the people who are going to excel in using AI are the people who really understand the fundamentals. I don't know if you guys saw or read or heard anything about what happened at Ford Motor Company about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Anybody familiar with what happened at Ford in regards to their warranty system?
Oh,
It was in the news.
okay. What happened?
I'll tell you what happened. So they went back and they rehired 350 engineers who had gotten to their retirement state, because they had released them and brought in younger engineers to come in and train the AI on their warranty. This is my understanding of it, their warranty, but it failed. And the reason why it failed, this is my understanding, the reason why it failed is that the younger engineers didn't have the background, or didn't have what I call the tacit knowledge to be able to inform and to be able to guide the development of that AI solution. So organizations have to be very careful in who they're putting at the helm of generating these AI solutions. You can come up with a lot of you can come up with a lot of solutions for using AI. It's trained to give you an answer regardless of whether the answer is right or not. But it takes a skilled person who knows the business, whether it's engineering or business analysis or project management. That person can look at um, the answer from the AI and tell, in a quick, very quickly, if it's on the right path or if it's on the wrong path. So that was a real life example. They had to rehire 350 what they call graybeards. I think it was IBM. IBM had utilized, and they have I think they have a business process where they've utilized a lot of their retired executives to come back and work on some of the hard projects that they have in IBM. And so this is not a new thing for them. But I think the more important thing, which I hope you guys are listening, and that is that there's what we call explicit knowledge, which is everything that's written and everything that's documented. But then there's the tacit knowledge, which is not documented. And I think the failure in AI is that AI models are being trained on explicit knowledge, the knowledge that has been documented. But there's a lot of knowledge that exists between the two ears of people that never gets put on a piece of paper. And I don't think we could ever replace that. Anybody have any comments on that? But that's my premise, and I don't that's what I believe right now is what's happening.
Well,
Yeah.
you see that with what I call blanket layoffs. They lay off the old timers, the guys who've been around forever,
Hmm.
and they don't realize how much industrial knowledge just walked out the door, can't be
Yes.
replaced,
Yes.
or they have
Yes.
to, like you said, to eat crow and hire them back, probably
Yes.
at a premium too.
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of money to get a retired executive out of retirement if they're retired well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my point there is that I believe that AI should be trained. The AI models that we develop should have individuals who are domain experts who have that tacit knowledge that has that experience to be able to guide the development of the AI. So we got to you got to go back, and let me say it this way: just like in sports, you have to go back to the fundamentals, right? Too often we're having people at the helm of these AI development solutions that don't really know or understand the fundamentals. Now you need to be able to produce the answer by hand before you can actually produce it, using a computer. And in the 40 some years that I've been working in project management and business analysis, I've done a lot of these things by hand, or I've done a lot of these things the hard way. So, it doesn't take a whole lot for me to look at something and say whether that's valid or not because of my experience. So my point on that is that your knowledge, your experience, your domain is very valuable to you because you have insight. Each and every one of us have insight into processes and procedures that no one else has, even though others who have been trained at it, they may understand it, but there's some information that in your brains that no one else has. And the AI models are not being trained on that. Okay, so that's my hypothesis. All right. So the level of human control should match the consequence of the decision. Okay. So that's the bottom line. So the level of human control should match the consequence of the decision. For low consequence work, AI may assist by producing a draft. For recommendations, a person approves the action. In bounded and reversible situations, AI may act within guardrails while a person monitors performance. High consequence decisions require stronger human authority. A meeting summary may be assisted. A pricing change should be approved. A routine inventory reorder may execute within limits. Employment, medical, credit, or legal decisions demand greater human oversight. So, two questions. How harmful would an error be, and how easy would it be to reverse? And that's the question that we should all answer in looking at how we're using our AI solutions. Responsible AI begins with purpose. It's the use of justified. Then we examine the data. Is a collection and use permitted? We evaluate the model. Is it performance adequate? Is it fair or is it explainable? We clarify the decisions. Is the person accountable? Finally, we monitor the system. Uh, will it drift? Will it be misused or harm be detected? So some practical artifacts that we could use would be model cards, data set fact sheets, bias testing, explanation records, access controls, exception logs, and monitoring thresholds can help us to make governance observable. So some ethical messages that we could look at is what is the ethical debt? I'm sorry, ethical debt behaves like technical debt. Okay, does ethical debt behaves like technical debt, or
Nope.
Nope.
it becomes more expensive when it is postponed? All right, all right. So good governance produces the decision. Good communication helps the decision happen. I've had an opportunity to talk with Dr. Harold Kersner. He's in retirement right now, but I've talked to him. He's written several books on project management. I had the opportunity to talk with him a couple of years ago. And one of the things he mentioned to me as far as AI is concerned, and he thought that organizations should really be preparing their legal team to help them to avoid lawsuits because of the um, the ability for the AI to go out and grab ideas and things from other organizations without providing some type of um, either uh, well wrongly using information and using data and using proprietary information that
Yeah.
they have no legal rights for. So he felt that the big part of AI is really going to be, or a big part of AI, which organizations may be not taken care of, and that is the legal aspects of the development that their engineers are coming up with and the solutions they're coming up with. So a dashboard, let me move on. A dashboard can help people explore information. A decision brief helps people commit to an action. We begin with the objectives and the decision required. We present the evidence. We state the uncertainty. We make the recommendation. We name the owner, and we define how value will be measured. Okay. So when we start off our presentation, we want to start off with the executive. We lead with the business meaning rather than walking executives through every chart. We keep the technical details available for questions, but do not put them in the driver's seat. So a brilliant analysis that never reaches a decision maker is a silent success. And the easiest way to build capacity is through a focused pilot, right? So I recommend that if you are not using AI and you're looking to use AI, come up with a focused pilot that you can start with. Okay? All right. So in that focused pilot, during week 1, you select one recurring decision and name its owner and value measure. In week 2, you map the evidence and controls and define a quality gate. In week 3, you add one AI assisted task and document the human review. In week 4, you run the pilot and decide whether to scale, revise, or to stop. Okay. So this is how you would run a pilot. These are steps to run a pilot. So as far as measuring, you're going to record the baseline cycle time. You're going to record the decision quality, the adoption, exceptions, and unintended effects, and what the realized values were. Start narrow enough to learn, but important enough to matter. Okay. So if you use this practical approach, it's going to reflect the professional work um, that you bring together through consulting or education or through authorship and leadership. All right. So what I like to say here, going to the next slide here, is as an organization, my professional portfolio brings four things together, four areas. Through Bridges Consulting and Business Bridges Academy, I support project management, I support business analysis, analytics, and organizational change. As an adjunct faculty working with Indiana Wesleyan University, I teach data analytics and artificial intelligence. I'm developing a book now in data analytics with AI capabilities, and my professional and community leadership keeps the work connected to real people and operating environments. So the common purpose across these roles is to helping people turn complex problems into decisions that create measurable values. So I would like to close with a practical invitation to you, and that is, all right, intelligent decision requires three kinds of disciplines: business discipline to frame the decisions, analytical disciplines to test the evidence, and human discipline to own the consequences. So first, identify one recurring decision in your organization that would benefit from better evidence. Second, you can visit or call me to come up with a strategy if you need to. And third, turn that challenge into a measurable 30-day pilot. Okay. What decisions will you redesign first? Right. So I think that's it for me. These are some of my references here that I use. So I want to open it up for any questions that you might have. Thank you for allowing me to present this to you. Hope it's been of value to you, and if I can answer any questions. Let me just say this: at the beginning of COVID, everything got locked down. I think I had just gotten my certified bit. No, it was actually during COVID. I got my certified business data analyst um, with IIBA. But I knew that during that time, there had to be a shift in the way things were being done, and so I spent the last few years right after COVID just diving into AI and diving into business data analytics. So I want to close with that and see if there's any questions. So I'll close this down. You can go ahead and uh, I need to stop sharing.
Thank you, George. This was excellent. I had a colleague who sent me a data scientist position this week,
Okay.
and I told her that I
Yes.
have to upskill my data software skills to be qualified for that position. And I was just curious, as a BA, what type of software should we learn to help um, be more fluent with using data in our everyday work?
Well, I would say you need to have a number of tools, and I think you should have a number of tools that you should be looking at. All right. Um, I would say, regardless of maybe the interpretation and the way people might see using things like generative AI. I think generative AI is still very important and very critical. You can either decide to use Chat GPT. I would suggest that you use the paid version so that your whatever you're doing is not shared with the rest of the world. All right. I would suggest also that you become knowledgeable in Python. Okay, learning Python and also learning. We teach here in Indiana Wesleyan University. We're using R. We're using R language. So any of the languages, R or Python, I think will be good for data analysis. So Python is a little bit more flexible. If you use a generative AI, you can actually generate code through a generative AI that you can place in a Python application, and you can pretty much do a lot of significant things. There are people that are developing applications left and right using uh, generative AI. Claude, I think, is one of the better ones from what I've seen so far. People are using Claude to program and develop code. And my understanding is that it's actually replacing developers. It's starting to replace developers right now because it's done so well. I had a friend of mine he's developed. I mean, he's been a top notch developer for years, and I think for the first year or so, I was talking to him about AI, and he was shining my enthusiasm about AI. And boy, once he got a hold of Claude and he started seeing what the capabilities are, he wants to talk to me about what Claude can do and how Claude can help him to develop the code. So I think you need to have a good understanding of those tools. All right, that's just some of them, but always keep your eyes on and radar on those things that's going to bring value and benefit to what it is you're doing or what your domain is. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
In the chat, we have a comment that Claude Cowork and Copilot Pro uh, would might be able to be used instead of programming language. Is that possible?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. I'm hearing a lot about it, and it's really, if you think about it, if you think about it, we've shortened that development cycle now, where all these things that have the AI has been trained on, it does very well at that. So you can give it an idea, and you can actually get code at it, and actually use the AI to help you to troubleshoot and debug the code. So it's I mean, it's fantastic, I think. Right. But I don't know if you remember, any of you remember object oriented programming. Anybody remember object oriented programming? All right.
Yes.
So
Some of us are old enough to have experience.
okay. So object-oriented programming, the thing about object-oriented programming was that the main reason for development was that you were supposed to go from a picture to code, after just releasing the picture to uh, the software. So I think we're beyond that now with AI. We're beyond that now. We take an idea now. We can take one idea and we can go right to code,
Mm-hmm.
and don't have to worry about the UI. We don't have to worry about the database. It's doing all of that for us. So anyway, I think we're beyond object oriented. In fact, I think object oriented probably got us to where we are now.
It
So
helped, but
yes,
it will never replace knowing what you are trying to construct and whether you've achieved that goal. Having
yes,
some tool do it for you is fine, but is it the right thing is an answer that we have to provide.
yes,
So Cliff
I,
added
I,
that if we add to the list Databricks, Snowflake, and Fabric, it
I've
sounds
heard a
like you
lot.
got a
I'm
full
sorry.
house.
I've heard a lot about Snowflake so far. I haven't looked into it, but I think Snowflake is one of the leaders so far. Um, I have to apologize to you all. I'm going to have to jump off. I got another, and hopefully this has been of value to you. But I need to
Yes,
prepare for
thank
this
you.
next group that I need to talk with. So
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
thank you
George,
guys for
thank
having me.
you
Hopefully it's
to
been
us.
I've shared something that you didn't know already.
Thanks,
You've
George.
opened our eyes. Thank you so
Okay.
much. We will see y'all next week. And don't forget
Okay.
this Saturday at the park with Cliff. If you want to know more information, Cliff, will you put it out on LinkedIn so everybody can see it?
oh, it's all over the place. Come on.
Okay.
You know it's out there.
It's out there. So if you want to come to Tampa and help us clean up a park and have lunch with Cliff, maybe. He's not buying, but he will have lunch with you. We will, just liability here. We will see y'all next week. Thank you.
All
Bye,
right.
guys.
See you guys later.
Take care.